What got you here won't get you there. It's very important you understand this, specifically belief systems. I've been teaching this to my $50,000 lead clients this past week. In our mastermind, I was talking about this belief barrier. I'm like, every level has a ceiling. The ceiling is a belief. You have a belief that has got you up to this ceiling, but to make this ceiling your new floor, you need to find out what the next belief is.
Came up from the bottom to the top. And the young is gonna never stop. And he always punching in the clock.
So I'll share with you guys kind of how I went from that depression to, hit a big milestone in business, which, less than 4% of businesses even survive within 4 years of going into business, let alone make a profit. And then it takes up to 10 years, 1% of those people even actually end up making six figures. And then, a small percentage of even that actually cross $1 million. And we're about to touch about 2 million this year before the end of the year. And we're on track to do 10 million next year. And so I'm going to share this story with you guys so everyone can see how much is possible if you just focus on the right things. So because I've worked with over 120 different coaches in different industries and niches, I've had the privilege of seeing patterns between the ones that struggle and succeed, between the ones that get it right away or take a long time. And those patterns, I realized I'm going to share them with you in today's talk so that you can see, hey man, am I doing this? And is that why I'm stuck? Or was I going to do this and that's going to stop me or hinder me? So that's hopefully the goal here. So, but 2 years ago, this time, exactly in December, actually probably exactly on this day too, I was going through some serious setbacks. And what had happened was I tried to go in the online space. I did for 3 years. I ran a seminar business, very Tony Robbins like I was putting a few hundred people in a room and, helping them break through and change and do interventions with it. It was pretty thrilling, actually. I was inspired by him. I'm like, I'm going to learn everything this guy does and do it myself. So I would put people in rooms and people 2-3 times my age. At the time, I was 20 years old. And I was like, I'm a life coach. I'm going to help you guys live your life. Meanwhile, I haven't even started my life, but I got really good at understanding what the best people in the world did to help people change in order for me to do it as well. So I got really good. I studied it like a student at university, and I started to get good at getting results. And that went on for 3 years, and we did roughly about 850 grand over 3 years. So I didn't really know how to make a lot of money. But I did I did fix a lot of money issues in my life as a kid. My family, there were immigrants coming to Canada and financial issues. And so I had to rely on my own as a young boy to figure out if I want things, how do I afford it? I started selling when I was 15, because I wanted to go to the movies with my friends. My mom's like, well, I don't have 20 bucks to give you. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't have 20 bucks to give me? It's like just 20 bucks. How are you paying for stuff? And I was a little sassy 15-year-old. And she just had to look me in the eyes one day like, hey, your dad's not helping now. He's not here. He was gone at that time. And I can't afford this. So you got to not go. In my head, I'm like, not go. What are you talking about? Just because I don't have money, you want me to not go and do something or get something? I'm like, this is not the life I'm going to live. Such a simple little distinction. But at that 15-year-old age, I'm like, I'm going to find a way to go. So I ended up getting a job selling newspapers door to door. And I was making $14 a subscription. And at that age, I was doing like $150 to $250 a week. And so I was working 10 hours a day. They would pick us up in the sketchy ass like rape van. Honestly, it's literally what it sounds like, a silver Dodge Caravan. They pick up a bunch of 15-year-old kids, like this super dude, like sketchy dude. His name was Brocco. He wore these glasses all the time, like these, like biker guys. I'm like, dude, this looks really sketchy, but whatever it takes, whatever it takes. So we would get picked up after school every single day, from 3:30 to like 9:30, and we go work 5 hours a day, and Monday to Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, we would work from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And he would buy us one pizza to share on Saturday and Sundays, and no food on the weekdays. So I started there selling. And I started to get really good at going door to door and, learning people and just getting the sale. Like, hey, it's subscription, let's do it. And I started making a few $100 a week. And I started to help my mom out. And I'm like, man, I like selling, but this is a lot of work for a little bit of pay. I started to get back pain at like 15 because I'd walk for 8 hours a day over and over and over and over. And so I'm like, I can't do this. But that was my journey. And that's what got me into entrepreneurship. I didn't know what got me into entrepreneurship and sales because I just did it as a means to an end. But then I realized I was good at it. So, by 16, I had a studio. I love music a lot. I can produce it, I can sing it, I can rap it. I love, like, it's my happy place. So at 16, I had a studio in my mom's basement, and I was recording a bunch of thugs, gangsters, and rappers from my high school for $20 an hour. And so I was friends with everybody, and they would just come down and they would literally bring their guns like in their backpacks. Like that's, but I'm like, hey man, come in. I'm your producer. I'm gonna help you out. They would sign these little contracts that I made up. It's like, I'll take you to court if you don't pay. I remember all this shit. And so I was recording all these guys. Like, I put together $200-$300 and I bought a bunch of studio equipment, like the cheapest of the cheap, a mic, an audio interface. And I started to run a little business there. And I would charge $100 sometimes for a beat that I made to a singer, or I would, make $60 in like an hour or something just for recording. So it's kind of cool. Like I started building like something from a young age. That's kind of where I started, like Armin started. But until 20 years old, I was really just kind of doing everything. I was kind of lost, confused. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but there was like a good 4 years or 5 years or just a long time where I didn't know what that purpose was for me. Like, what am I supposed to do in my life? Like, all I'm really thinking about is tomorrow, next week, and next month, paying the next bill, finding out how to make them, I'm going to do the next thing. That's all I was thinking. It was so short-sighted. I never had vision in my life, because I wasn't also raised to think I'm going to have something in my future that's great to work towards. When I saw Tony Robbins, I'm like, I'm going to do this, because if this guy makes all this money, has a beautiful personal life, gets to change people's lives, and, and still is like really cool and shit, I'm like, I want to do this. Especially the perk of being a giant. Like, if I just become a coach, I'll become a giant. I'm like, it's great. Bigger hands, bigger feet, bigger life. So I'm like, man, I want to be like this guy. And so I dedicated everything for the next 3-4 months, just to learn everything about him. And I started a coaching business, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I ran my first seminar event. I started I started coaching my barber for free for 3 hours to get over smoking weed. I had this person in Toastmasters who had marriage problems. I'm like, sit down, let me show you how you can take the issues you have in your mind about your husband and change it. And I did. I found out actually her father reminded her husband reminded her of her father, and she hated her father. So I'm like, great, we can fix that. I had another person that came in, her parents would tell her to shut up growing up every single day. So she spoke very timidly. By the end of the session, she was screaming her name. I'm like, great, I know how to do shit now. I know how to change people. So that was like my first 3 like case studies, and then I got into like running a seminar. And so I had like 50 people in a room, and 40 of them I didn't know they were strangers, because I had friends that were helping me fill the room. And so I started teaching. My first ever seminar was 7 hours. I'm like, I gotta catch up to Tony, man, just 4 days, 5-6 days. So I'm like 7 hours my first seminar. I started teaching a bunch of shit, and it was really all the stuff I was learning from him. And I told people that. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to teach you Tony Robbins content at NLP. And they're like, okay, there's NLP certified coaches in the audience, by the way. And they're like, are you allowed to teach this? I'm like, hey, I'm not telling people how to do it. I'm just sharing how I used it. And so I created this like little business. I made no money. 4 months into the first year, I literally made maybe a few grand, because I didn't know how to sell. I wasn't even trying to sell. I was just like, I want to help people. I want to teach. I love this stuff. And it was that when I built up all this value in this brand, and I built myself up, that I came across a person, very, very wealthy off person, came to one of my events. My biggest one was 100% at the time. And they're so inspiring to me. They're like, I own a fitness company. I want you to come and start, coaching us and teaching us. I'm like, sure. But can you also help me with my business? I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, you had a funnel set up, and I was learning like ClickFunnels and stuff. She goes, and you have like this marketing, you fill these events. Like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know, but I could teach you, but it won't be cheap. So at least I knew from when I was a young kid, like, we start high, like I had a few principles in sales that I did, even though I wasn't like prepared for that sale. I told her, I'm like, look, it's not going to be cheap. I charge a lot of money for consulting. And she goes, yeah, no problem. So we sit down, and I quote her at 15 grand a month. And I said, for however long you want, and I'm going to come do everything in your business. So I'm going to give you $50,000 a month worth of value. And she goes, okay. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, okay, what are you? Okay. I'm thinking like at that time, man, I was making no money. Right. And so we're talking about the idea of sales here. We were talking about this before we got on the call, how sales is really like everything in life. There's an entire book Napoleon Hill has called Selling Your Way Through Life. And it's honestly true. And so that's the actual skill, that and the ability to speak and teach. Like speaking is the highest income skill in the world when you combine it with selling. So if you could sell in front of audiences, it's the highest income skill in the world. And so luckily that one thing is what changed my life. And the vehicle I did it through was coaching. So I quoted her 15 grand. She goes, okay. I'm like, how long would you like to go for? She goes, let's start with 2 years. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh my God, it's like $300,000. I'm sitting there as a 21-year-old kid. I'm like, did she just say, I want to give you 300 grand right now? And I'm like, no, I can't do this. It feels wrong, but integrity. I'm like, yeah, why don't we just start with 6 months? And you go month by month. If you like it, if we want to move forward, we'll move forward. If not, we don't. She goes, okay. So I'm like, I'm going to need 6 pre-dated checks. The first of every month, 15 grand to my company. I collected the first one that week. I deposited. I'm like, that was the first time I ever made any real money. And that month I had 20 grand because I closed a couple more. Because when's the best time to sell? Right after you made a sale. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're in the momentum. A lot of people go fuck off and they do nothing and they celebrate. Big rookie mistake. Don't fuck off. You make money, go make more money. So I closed her and I'm like, okay, I could do this, man. And so I went and closed like 2 more $2,500 clients for something else. And so that was my first $20,000 a month. And it felt like a fluke, but now I look back, I'm like, I spent 6 months prior to that, building myself up my business, doing a lot of free work until the right person came along, saw the value and paid. And that year we did 100 grand, about 105 grand, but I had built myself a little job. I didn't have a business yet because most of the money came from that one client. So I had to get rid of the client because the client was my bottleneck. Here's a little principle for you guys. What got you here won't get you there. It's very important you understand this. Specifically belief systems. I've been teaching this to my $50,000 lead clients this past week. In our mastermind, I was talking about this belief barrier. I'm like, every level has a ceiling. The ceiling is a belief. You have a belief that has got you up to this ceiling, but to make this ceiling your new floor, you need to find out what the next belief is. Now, I'm not talking about foundations. Like you should take care of meditate every day, read every day. These things, you don't change that belief. But how you do those things must change because as you grow, everything changes and you have to adjust. So there was a belief I had that year that, I have if I'm making a lot of money, that's the goal of the business. So I made 105 grand. But then I had to change a belief. I go, wait, but I only have one client paying me that money. The rest of it was like, I think 80 grand, 90 grand of it was like her. She paid 50 grand a month for 6 months. The other 15, 20 grand was like, I learned how to sell a little bit on stage. I made few sales here and there. So I go, well, this isn't a real business yet until I have customers. So I had to change the belief from like one client is a business. It's not, that's not a business. Right now I'm like, no, I need to fill rooms and make the same amount of money doing actual business stuff like customers and seminars. So the next year we did $250,000 and I really busted my ass, like finding weird creative ways to get people to find out about me and then get in a room. And I would teach little seminars, guys, of like 4 people in the room. I would have a little workshop and put 5 people in the room just to help them. And then like 1 or 2 of them will buy $1,000 ticket to another seminar. And that was what I did. I hustled, and I would fill these rooms and it would overlap. Eventually at those events, we'd sell the next event. And then I soon had hundreds of people in a room and I had this massive audience with speakers and stuff. And people look at that and they go, I wish I had that. You're so lucky. I'm like, no, you don't understand the kind of grinding I did, the kind of shit that no one wants to do. Here's the good to write or downer for you. I would really write this one down. It's a thing I've been telling myself for many years. And if you are a student of Think and Grow Rich, you understand that your mind is like a computer. And so you have a coding in there or a program. You have to rewrite that program if you want different results. And so one of the things I rewrote was, I do things people can't do. That's why I'm successful. And I do things people won't do. That's why I'm successful. And this is something I wired in myself because I realized if I try to do the easy thing, which everyone would do, I'm not going to get what the people who, the few people in the world that get because they do things people can't and won't do. So most people won't put in the work I did. Most people can't do some certain things because they're just so against their values or beliefs. So I'm like, okay, cool. If you are afraid to speak in front of an audience and it's against your value of security or comfort, then no problem. I will do that though, because I'm willing to do whatever it takes to pay the price to get what I want. I realized that year, like, I did well, but I'm like, I still got to go to the next level. And that second year I met the president of Think and Grow Rich. We ended up, I'm giving you a short snapshot of the story, but we ended up partnering together and he Think and Grow Rich for the first time in history endorsed another brand, which was my seminars, the REBORN Experience and the Lead Speakers Academy. And that's never happened because most people will endorse TGR because Think and Grow Rich is a 100-year philosophy. It's the first ever practical philosophy of success in the world. So they never actually endorse others. And so I was able to land that in exchange to get them at my events to sell their seminars. And so I ended up starting a partnership with them. We made hundreds of thousands together. And he ended up becoming a mentor, like a father to me. Satish Verma is the president of Think and Grow Rich Institute. And by a year later, in my mind, I planted the seed. I'm like, man, I want to be the vice president, or I want to work closely with, I want to speak places with this guy. And by the year after, within 12 months, I'd argue even less, he actually couldn't make it to a place called CEO Space, a big time event where CEOs come to learn. And he's like, you should go there and speak. I'm like, Satish, what should I go as though? He goes, call yourself a vice president. I'm like, no problem, sir. I'll do that for you. I'll take care of it for you. So I achieved this goal I had just planted in my mind just by working hard on myself and paying the price. And so that grew into another partnership with Together. Now we taught seminars together for a couple of years, and then COVID happened, so we had to go online. So now there's an online version of the course that we used to teach that you can buy. It's like $300-400, and all good proceeds go to like Napoleon Hill Foundation. They help people out in schools, get scholarships. So the third year we did $500,000 in sales, and it's because I started to work on my mind, and I pretty much doubled my business because of the mentorship I got from Think and Grow Rich. So if you haven't read the book, if you haven't studied that book, this thing right here is literally the only thing I keep reading. I don't know if you can see it. Put it next slide. There it is. This thing right here is the only thing I keep reading over and over and over. And I probably read it a dozen times. I probably listened to it for thousands of hours. And the secret is not reading it, it's doing it. The secret is not reading it, it's making it a habit. And if the principles aren't a habit in who you are as a person, you don't understand it yet. So it doesn't matter what you know about it. What matters is how much of it resembles in you as a person. So for example, extra mile is one of the principles and law of success actually, but he talks about it in here. So if you naturally always just go beyond the call of duty, like more than what you were supposed to do, and you don't even notice it, that means it's a habit. It's called Think and Grow Rich. I'll write down here for you guys. It's the same book Tony Robbins studied when he was 19, starting out. Jim Rohn would endorse. Napoleon Hill's one of the first godfathers, if you would say, of success, just because he taught it the first time practically. That mentorship about how I became as a person, working on myself and how I looked at my business and myself and my vision and how I read people, right? Not only made me a stellar salesperson in everything I do, but also made me an incredible leader and what people would say that they work with me. And those it's because I followed a code, a philosophy for how to live my life and be a certain way. So we ended that year at $500,000. That was my long story short version of why we did $850,000 over 3 years in seminars. But when I went on the online space, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So for 5 months, I just went into depression, procrastinating, indecision, doubt, eating myself alive, trying to make choices of what should I do online? What funnel should I build? And for 5 months, this lingered on. And my ego wouldn't let me just go and fucking pay somebody that knows how to do it so I can learn from them there. By the way, I can swear, right? I'm just curious. I never pre-framed it. Great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm real, so I'm not gonna filter my mouth because people get triggered. That's an insecurity they have. I went into this crazy spiral, and I'm sitting there questioning everything at this point. And you gotta be very careful, guys. Indecision is a seedling of fear. So when you're afraid of something, you start to become indecisive. So, and then indecision, what happens is that when you don't make up your mind, things start to stack up, things you got to do, time starts to weigh down, and you get overwhelmed. And then overwhelm is the primary cause of procrastination, not lack of energy. A lot of people get this wrong. Not being lethargic or not sleeping well or not being motivated. None of these things actually is why you procrastinate. You procrastinate because you're overwhelmed. When procrastination is the opposite of prioritization. When you have priority means you put it first, you get it done. When you don't prioritize something, you procrastinate on it. And the only time you do that is because things stack up and you get overwhelmed. So if you can find a way to conduct yourself in a clear mind, you'll never procrastinate. And the secret is to really boil it down to the only few things you got to do and just doing one thing at a time. And when your mind's clear, it's like the number one cause of action, a clear mind. Confusion and complexity is what stops you everywhere and stack things up and you can't make your mind up. So I got into this state and it spiraled out of things. So my seminar business started to die out because I wasn't in the right state of mind and my online business wasn't kicking off. So I started to lose. I was spending money, not making more than I bring in. And because of that, I was starting to get really afraid of poverty, afraid of man, what if I lose everything? Then I got afraid of failure. What if I try something and it doesn't work? What will people think? Fear of criticism. These are all the fears in Think and Grow Rich. Fear of criticism. What will people think if I fail? All these things just weighed on me. And by December of 2019, I had lost almost everything. I had fired everyone in my company. I had a team of about 4 people and 10 volunteers for my events. There was only one person left, and he came to work, and I was still paying his salary. And that guy, he's the reason why my online business even exists, because he pushed me one step further past the finish line, or past at least the quitting line, for me to not quit. But his name is Imad. Now he's the head of operations, and which is pretty insane because he didn't even know what a funnel was when I met him, and he didn't know who Tony Robbins was. It was insane. He was like a baby. Back then he knew nothing. Now he's running my entire company with me. And so it's really inspiring in 2 years. But at that time, I'm like, I lost, money was lost. People were lost. Everyone just pushed everyone away. I broke up my girlfriend at that time. And I'm like, I'm alone now. I'm sitting in an office in a suit, sitting there like depressed. Like, I don't want to wake up in the morning. Like, I don't care. I just don't want to get out of bed. And I want to leave my office early until I paid the very little money I had. I found a person who is extremely successful and wealthy, but spiritual as hell. And so I went to him. He's like an older brother to me. I'm like, what do you charge for coaching? And he goes, $1,000 an hour, but you don't have to pay me. I'm like, no, I'm going to pay you because it's the right thing to do and it's going to be valuable. I had no money, guys. So I had like less than 10 grand in the account. That's not a lot of money when running a business. So I sent him $1,000 and I sat down with him. And the only thing he talked to me about is faith, not spirit, not religious faith, the emotion of faith, emotion of faith. I'm not particularly religious in anything. I'm spiritual. And what he meant by faith is the capacity of faith. He's like, Armin, what do you want as your goal? I said, $10 million. That's what I want to build, $10 million company. He goes, you know what the difference is between where you are and where you want to be? I go, what? He goes, your capacity of faith. I go, what does that mean? At $1 million, you're going to have $100,000 problems. At 100,000, you're going to have $10,000 problems. He goes, so the bigger your capacity is to handle things without freaking out, meaning you have faith that things will work out. So I thought about, I'm like, man, at that time, I wanted to make $1 million. I hadn't made it yet when I talked to him. So I realized I got to grow my capacity to handle more if I want to achieve more, not learn a different method. I thought he was going to talk to me about business and finance and systems and hiring, but he didn't. He challenged me in how happy I was in my life. He challenged me in how much I actually believe things could work out. So you guys are all, training to learn the most powerful skill in the world. With that, you're either going to work in an incredible team, you're going to add that kind of value to make it incredible, or you're going to build your own business one day. And what I'm here to tell you is from my journey, I learned that the biggest needle mover, the thing that you focus on the most that moves everything else, is going to be how deeply you analyze yourself, not your business, not your prospects. I have one salesperson in my company. I run all the traffic through him. We charge very high prices. So, we'll do like 100 grand a week with literally less than 5 people. So he makes a lot of money. And he's been with me for 2 years now. I mentored him as a young boy when I met him. As a young kid, he grew into this man, and I'm very proud of him. And every time he'd ask me, Armin, can you teach me sales? He's like, how can I learn sales better? I'm like, buy books on understanding yourself, like Think and Grow Rich. I'll tell you how the most successful logically to understand how things happen with people. Then it'll be very easy to make sales. You buy a sales book, it's tunnel vision to information. It's good information, but it's only for a sale. But a great salesman, a great saleswoman isn't just have sales tricked up their sleeve. They're incredible coaches to some degree. Salespeople, great, extraordinary salesmen, and people with salesmanship, they're good psychologists to some degree, because all you're doing is getting people to turn uncertainty to certainty on a phone call, turn fear into faith on a phone call. Because at the end of the day, if the offer is good and you believe in it and they know they need it, the only thing stopping them is their emotion. So it's not what you say to them. It's not the response to the objection. No. If you don't understand the source of why they're thinking this way, you can't change a person to make them want to buy something. And even if you close it, they will refund or cancel if you did not address it in the sales call. A big thing we teach to my coaches is your customer, your client, shows up in the business the way they buy. You make a bunch of exceptions on a sales call. They show up as a very problematic client in the business. Oh, can you guys change the coaching calls? Can you do this? No, we can't fucking do that. But I'm sorry that on the sales call, you believed we do that for people. We don't. You're here to learn, not here to make everything learn for you. So the way you sell a prospect is the way they become a client. It's how they show up. That's why most first thing we do with businesses, at least, is like 90% of client problems go away as soon as we just focus on how the sales are being done. So you guys have the most valuable skill in the world. The way you use it can make or break a company. It can make or break your company. I want you to think about that. It's more than just getting a transaction or a person to buy something. So I told them, I'm like, don't like study sales books. It's good. Like the old fashioned ones. Tom Hopkins has some of the greatest psychological trainings on sales I think I've ever seen. His entire method was to get people to say, sell you on something, not you selling them on something. My entire business is built off that philosophy. We don't ever sell people things. We usually get on, we just close. And closing is a factor of like, hey, you tell me on why you got to do this. Because if I have to convince you, you're not a good client. And so I told him, I'm like, go deeper in yourself. Because the more you understand more about yourself, the more you're going to understand prospects when you're on the phone. When you deal with your own insecurities, you're going to find out how to overcome their insecurities on the phone of buying. When you deal with your fears in life, you're going to understand how to get over their fears of buying. And so the more you improve your just coaching, in my opinion, not all forms, but most of the time it's just you're a psychologist. You're working with them. Like it's almost like a therapy call when you work with people like, hey, you have all these things, all this baggage you're carrying that's causing you to take action on your goal. And the way you take action on your goal is by buying this off, not a salesperson. So yeah, good. And what I said right after was, if you want to master sales, master yourself. So learn about how to overcome your insecurities, because then you'll overcome their insecurities. Learn how to overcome your fears, because then they're going to overcome their fears on the phone to buy. Learn how to understand, forgive yourself for something or get rid of baggage in your life, because when you get on the phone with a prospect who has baggage that's causing them to not want to move forward with doing something new in their life by buying your offer, you'll do it with them. Most of our calls end up becoming therapy and psychology calls. We don't have to have sales like tactics. It doesn't matter for us. For us, we're just trying to understand the person. And then that's why we create, like, I know for a fact we don't make as much sales as some people that push hard sales. I know that, but I've made that conscious decision that for me, quality matters more than quantity. So we'll still hit like 300-400 grand in a month, or our biggest month was 650 grand in July. But the seamlessness of our sales process is like incredible. Like people, like we've enrolled 3 people in the last 7 days into my $30,000, elite program. And you know how it happened? We didn't sell them. They just like, hey, I want to do this. Because the way we created an environment where prospects can buy from us, it's like, it's their choice. It's their decision. It's their idea. And you do that by creating an environment where they feel understood all the time. So they have certainty in you. That's what we call trust. So I give my top salesperson that one piece of advice. I'm like, just learn how to better yourself every day and understand yourself every day, your own problems, fix those, you'll fix other people's problems. Because that's what selling is. You're selling a solution to a problem. So if you got problems you don't know how to solve yet, you won't know how to solve that for the prospect. One of my mentors said something very powerful. One of my mentors said to me, he goes, you buy, if you make excuses, you're forced to buy other people's excuses. So be a person that doesn't give you excuses. Be a person that does what they say. Because if we buy our own excuses. So when you can't overcome an objection, it's because the objection's real in you, right? And let me give you another kickoff, a little shocker maybe. I say this every time. I always get like shock reactions. Price is never the problem. It's not a real objection. Price is never an objection. I'm sure in this amazing program you guys are in, or whatever program you're in, but I'm pretty sure Mike's teaching you the right stuff. He's doing pretty well. And you guys are doing well as well. And if you're not, you're going to. But I'm pretty sure hopefully you've learned this, which is money's never the actual conversation. So the last thing we ever talk about with a prospect is money. The last thing we ever talk about when someone gives us a price objection, we never, ever actually address it. Because the moment you talk about the price, now the call is about the price, not about the problem. So these are just small like nuances that make a difference between closers and salespeople, like a seller that has to push on a client versus someone who's just like selling you on, I got to join. To wrap up the story, I almost quit. I almost closed off my company because I had no faith and no hope, and tomorrow seemed worse than today. And Imad, my right-hand business partner now, he looks at me and goes, man, let's just do at least one more. Let's try one more webinar, like one more launch this week. It's already scheduled. Don't cancel. I'm like, yeah, sure. That turned into our first ever sales online. And then we did it again. And we built this entire business. We started charging $5,000, then 10 grand, then 30 grand, then 50 grand, then 100 grand client. And we grew this within like 15 months. We got to 1.3 million. And what's more impressive, guys, and this is what I'm really proud of for my team, is that 900,000 of it came within 4 months. Actually, mostly came within 2 months, because between March of this year to July of this year, which is what, March, April, May, June, July, 5 months, we did like $800,000-$900,000. And 3 of those months were like 200, 300, 400 grand, and 1 to $600,000. It was insane. And that happens, guys, when you're persistent with your goal over and over and over. You're just beating the horse over and over and over and over. I've been in this for 5 years now in business. Been selling for like 10, 5 years in business, 2 years in the online space. And so what I'm telling you guys is, I'll leave you with this. This is what I learned, at least. Persistence is one of the key elements of success. And it's because that eventually, how the law works is a person who never gives up, eventually time gives up and says, okay, we'll give this person what they want, because it's all just a test. So there was 3 decisions I made in the beginning of my journey at 5 years ago, when I started wanting to become a coach and get into selling, my expertise and knowledge. 3 decisions I made. I had nothing, but these 3 decisions is everything I needed to build what I have today. First decision was I decided what I want. I made a very clear decision on what I want in my life. This is what I'm building. Some of you guys are picking up sales as a side thing. Some of you guys are picking it up as a forever thing. I'll tell you this right now. The way you're picking it up is the way you're going to treat it. So even if it isn't a forever thing, at least act like it is. And you're going to treat it in a very different way. You're going to prioritize sales and your trainings in this program in a very different way. If you think it's your forever thing, for the rest of your life, you're going to do this. Even if you're not, if you treat it like that, you'll do better. Second, I decided that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. That's a real decision you got to make. Not everyone makes those decisions. Not everyone consciously says, I'm willing to do anything, within more ethics to get what I want. And that's why when your family calls you on a weekend, and instead of you finishing a project for your business or work on another module to get better at sales, they go, hey, we're all going out. You want to come? You get like tempted, and you're saying like, oh no, should I go? Should I not? What will they think if I don't? You torture yourself because you never made a commitment to yourself that you'll do whatever it takes. So when I made that decision, it wasn't hard for me. I'm just like, yeah, I can't come. What do you mean you can't come? Well, I'm working. Oh, you're working. Okay. Well, that's not really cool. You don't care about your family. These things are part of the process. But I already decided I'm doing whatever it takes. I'll do what people won't, and I'll do what people can't. That's why I'm successful. That specific belief system, guys, is what pulled me through all the hard times. The second one is being willing to do whatever it takes. And third one is never quitting until you get it. Those 3 decisions, those 3 things I did is single-handedly responsible for everything I have today. And the only difference, and I'm telling you right now, by the way, between the coaches I see that do well with us and not, those patterns are right there. The ones who do well, they know what they want. They don't have a threshold for inconvenience. And what I mean by that is like, oh, the mastermind call is too early in the morning. I don't wake up then. That's a threshold for inconvenience. You have a limit for how much you're willing to inconvenience yourself for the goal you want. I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you have a limit or a threshold, you will not succeed. It doesn't work that way. Goals don't give a shit what your threshold of inconvenience is. Goals just want you to do whatever it takes to pay the price. So whether you pay the price or not is the only difference. So having limitations or like, I'm willing to do up to this moment, you already lost the game before you started. You got to be willing to do whatever it takes. Most of you probably have jobs. You got to be willing to quit that job at any moment if that means that's the make or break of you succeeding in sales. Like that has to be the attitude you have. I've seldom seen people make all these rules and preferences and picky about how they succeed and actually do well. Like I've never seen it. So if you find those unicorns, let me know. I would love to study their psychology, see how they did it. But it doesn't work. That's from what I know. And the third one is that they never quit. And so when you decide you're never going to quit and it's like forever you're going to do this, guess what happens when obstacles come up? You don't think of a way out right away. You don't start thinking, oh, what if this is wrong? Those thoughts don't enter your mind because you've already decided it's not an option. So the only thoughts that enter your mind when you're faced with the challenge is, how do I fix it? That's a good little hack for you guys if you deal with self-doubt in moments of challenges. It's because you still think there's a way out. Like, I might not do this if it doesn't work too well. Hopefully that give you a couple things to start working on in your journey, but we can open up Q&A and any questions you guys have about what I've said. I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Armin. It's been awesome hearing your story and kind of what you've been through your journey. But I want to start off with a question. I know obviously to be successful in this space, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes, right? So what would you do to kind of stay disciplined on doing whatever it takes? You know, your family calls you, you can't go to any family events, or, you know, maybe a friend hits you up, or whatever the case may be. How did you stay disciplined to do that?
So discipline, I just recently invested $100,000 into a mentor for me for a year. And he built a company, sold it for $792 million. Talk about sales, cash, walked out of it. And so this guy's super spiritual, paid him $100,000. I'm like, hey, I want to see you every week. And I want to learn from you how you have discipline. First lesson he taught me, discipline is a byproduct of structure. You can't have discipline without structure. I'll tell you, what you're asking is not about discipline, but you said discipline. I want to make sure I touch on this real quick. I'll tell you how to handle stuff. That's just see, what you're battling is an emotion, and I'll talk about it, but discipline can be had without structure. Because I asked him, like, what is discipline? What's the difference between discipline and self-control? I don't know the difference. He goes, well, discipline is when you have an actual routine of what you do and you stick to it. That's discipline. Hey, every morning I wake up, I got to do these things. Every night I have to do this thing. I got to meditate every day. That's my discipline. So if I stray away from it, I'm not disciplined. So if you don't have a structure in your life, is what I'm trying to say, you can't be disciplined. So the first step to discipline is creating structure. Without that, you can't be disciplined. Self-control is your ability to fight urges and impulses in the moment. It's not discipline. Discipline is about structure and sticking to that. But you need to have self-control to have discipline, which means when you guys are working, at any moment, sometimes you'll have this impulse. Hey, let me just go for a walk. I want to do something else. I don't want to do this. I don't feel good to work right now. And so what happens is self-control is the willpower to say, no, I'm going to do this anyways. Now that's to answer discipline and self-control. But the question was, how do you stick to what you said you're going to do, even when it gets really hard and families, throwing shit at you? How many of you guys have dealt with that? Have you dealt with resistance or friction with family or loved ones just because you have a goal now that requires your attention?
Yeah, it's
you guys deal with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So step one is this, man. You got to accept that that's a part of it. There's nothing wrong. Like, you signed up for that. It's like being surprised that you're feeling. It's like being surprised that you're sore after working out because you signed up to get fit. That's not like, there's no problem. You don't have to go Google search solutions for soreness. Like, it doesn't. You have to just accept that being sore and having pain is a part of working out. Like, so having friction with relationships, difficulty relationships, is a part of signing up for a big goal. Like, that's a part of it. So if you just accept it, most of your guys' stress will all leave because your expectation is that hopefully that doesn't happen. You have a hopefulness, this expectation that's not real. Hey, I hope my family understands. Well, have your family build 6 or 7 figure businesses. And then one in your family that's the one that's criticizing you, have they done something to love what you're doing now? So how could you ever expect them to understand? That's my point. So you have to expect that they're not going to understand. And just that expectation alone is what causes most people stress. You guys following me? So I'm hearing some noise, by the way. You guys can mute yourself. And then only unmute when you want to ask a question. So first, you got to accept that that's just a part of it. So don't let it bother you, because bothering you means you're disappointed because you thought it'd be different, but don't think it's different. My mentor, Tommy, is like, Armin, you can't expect a crippled person to walk. Because I was trying to get a person with like 50 years of habits in their body of how they think life is about. I try to change them. He goes, you can't do that. They got to do that. So you got to just accept them for how they are. So if your family, your loved ones, guys, it could be your own spouse, your own kids. Like, if they're going to give you resistance because you set a goal in your life and you have to do a lot of work to get there, then you got to just accept that they don't understand, and that's okay. And you don't let it bother you. You distance yourself in many ways as possible, not bring that topic up so they don't tell you stupid shit about it. So I never talk about business with my family, for example. I don't need to. They don't understand anything about it. So why would I talk to them about it? And if you can create distance, if not, then you just got to be patient. I promise you this, when you're very successful in what you've been working on, they're all going to come around. They're going to love you. They're going to want to learn from you. That's what happened. I thought my whole family was right off. I was willing to not talk to my whole family at one point. There's so much resistance between us. I had therapy. I was getting therapists for us to talk. And at the end of the day, it was just because I was in the middle of the process of my goal. But I waited long enough and might change my life. And guess they started to get influenced. They changed their life. We got closer. Now I love my family. And they understand I'm busy most of the time. I'll talk to them for like once a week. Sometimes 2 weeks I'll go without talking to them, but we're still good when I talk to them because they know how busy I am. I was talking to someone about this, brilliant. They go, how do you fix in the moment when you're having a problem? How do you react to things? I'm like, you don't. I'm like, really smart, successful people, they prevent those things from coming up in the first place, not finding a way to solve the reaction. So try to not put yourself in positions where you have to fight your family about something. You know what I'm saying? And that you can do that by setting expectations in advance with them. So if I tell my mom, for example, like, hey, this whole year, I need you to, no promises, I can't make it to any of the events. And if I can, I will come. If she might not like that, but if at least I say it up front, I will avoid all the issues that, throw me off for a couple of days because I'm stressed or ruin my day of conversations with her in the future because I gave her that last minute message. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have a responsibility when you sign up for a big goal in life to make sure everyone you love in your life knows what it's going to be like. And you should tell them it's difficult. That's why I need you to understand more. I need you to be here for me. I'm not going to be home early every day. When I come home, I'm probably going to have to watch some training videos. I'm going to have to make some moves in our life so we can change. But don't try to change them. Just set expectations that they shouldn't expect things from you they can't give anymore because you have to give it to your goal. Hey, Steve.
Okay. Hey, Armin. Steve Izaki from Long Beach, California. Appreciate you spending time with us here. Really, really do. Question. Earlier, you mentioned of your you got your life coach philosophy. What can you tell us more about that?
My philosophy for a living is thinking rich.
Okay. All right.
Like having definiteness of purpose, right? Having applied faith, like getting really good at listening to hunches and instincts, like intuition, and acting on those things. I didn't really grow up religious, I was very much just like, I didn't really care. So it was very unbiased. My what I'm telling you about spiritualism is very unbiased. Like I came from, like an unbiased background. Like I didn't really study or anything like that. So I just realized that it's actually real and it matters. And the people who do great things in life, they usually believe something bigger than them is helping them out. And so that's just, to me, I'm like, that's a principle of success. So I took it on face value at first, but then when I dug deeper into it, I started to feel things, have connections, have experiences. And I'm like, man, there's something here we have to learn about. So the philosophy I follow is Thinking Rich, which is, there's about 13 principles. Law of Success is much bigger. It's 15 principles. That's like a encyclopedia. I have it right here. It's like huge. But everything, the principles, and that's years, man. You can't expect it overnight, but the years of seminars I was sitting in, learning from the president. I was teaching with him at one point. There's so much. You could spend an entire lifetime just mastering this book about leadership, about mindset, about goals in your life, decision-making, fear handling, organization. Biggest skill a CEO has to have, or anyone who's building something in their life, is the ability to organize power, organize resources, organize people. So that skill alone, most people don't have. That's what creates a good manager or person or CEO that runs a great company, the organizational skill. So that's the philosophy I follow by. But to sum it up is, I believe, and this is what I learned from diving so deep into Napoleon Hill's work. I believe there's a higher power. Yeah. There's something that's making creation work. Like nature on a meticulous scientific level, there's so many different details. It looks like it was perfectly coded by an engineer. Like it's impossible that this thing was an accident. So creation itself is very fascinating to me. So I believe there is a thing, and I believe our job is to find our way to appropriate ourselves with that thing. Not a person, not a entity, like just an energy. And there's like this vault, Napoleon Hill calls it infinite intelligence. just an infinite intelligence storehouse of just intelligence. So if we connect to that thing, anything we want in life, we could have, because the amount of resources, ideas, and things we need to do to get those things, it shows up for us. Not on our doorstep, like, woo-woo. I mean, like, it shows up in people and ideas in our head, and the greatest, inventors in the world, the greatest business people in the world, they usually have like these moments where they dream about something, or they wake up and it hits them in the mind. So the ability to get your mind in a way where you can receive those things, receive that energy and power, that's my lifelong journey. Like, that's what I'm a student of. How do I make my mind a way where I can receive all of that? Because it's there. I'm just blocking it like a dirty filter in an engine. Right, it's not going through. So you clean the filter off for it to flow through properly. Hey, by the way, just to clear this up, there's only two states of mind you could ever operate out of. It's fear and faith, right? And I call it forward and backward thinking. Yeah, when I was making sales, like when I was upselling people from my 10K program to my 50K, this is the analogy I would use, and it would always close. Technically, it's like a close. So if you want to use it, you can. I go, listen, man. There's two types of thinking. There's forward thinking and backward thinking. Forward thinking says, how am I going to find the money now to get this going? Because by next month, I can make 10 times more money. Or by 6 months from now, my life could be different. Backward thinking is, how do I start to, save as much money as I can, just in case things don't work well? So I go, depending on which way you're thinking, that's where you're going to go. Forward thinking has to have faith. You believe that tomorrow's going to be better than today. Backward thinking, you believe tomorrow's going to be worse. And so you prepare. So a person wants to refund, for example, I'll be like, you're not thinking forward, you're thinking backwards. You're trying to get some money back into your bank account, but you're not fixing the forward problem, which is, how am I going to have more money? You don't have a spending problem. You don't have a savings problem. You have an income problem. So when someone wants to refund, if someone wants to refund or cancel, I go, listen, you're thinking backwards, because you're trying to get some money back in your account, but you don't have a spending or savings problem. You have an income problem. You have an income problem. You pay me to fix that. So I mean, you having some money back in your account, how's that going to fix the income problem? Next month, you're still not going to have money. So I said, your ability to get a person in faith mind, state of mind is what's going to cause them to move forward. That's why I said learning about yourself and working on a deeper connection with yourself is going to make you a better salesperson. Because if you don't know that, you're just going to use a bunch of surface level tactics, and people are going to feel like disingenuine with you because they don't feel understood. But I genuinely close like 9 times out of 10 any call I take. I don't take sales calls. Like, I'm running a company now, but when I do like my highest level offers on my 100Ks or my 50Ks, like, I'll take those. And so when I do them, it's just because I know why they're doing things and why they're saying things on the call so deeply that they just feel like, man, this is the only person that can help me in this world. You can get so good at understanding people, not understanding sales, understanding people, that when you speak to someone, they go, man, this person actually gets me. They'll pay you any amount of money you ask for. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, what they're getting.
I said, thank you, man, for showing up here today, sharing some of your story and your life with us. Tons of gold nuggets. I wrote down several things as you were speaking earlier. My question is this: is there a way to deal with that feeling of burnout and overwhelm? If so, like, well, whatever that is, do you also think that sometimes one of the ways to deal with it is sometimes just to take a step back, take a breather, or to remove stuff from your plate if your plate's just simply overloaded?
Let me shift your belief on this so you don't make the same mistake again over and over. Stacking up a to-do list doesn't make you more productive. It makes you less productive. Signing up to do more things doesn't make you more productive. It makes you less productive. Trying to do more things doesn't make you more productive. That's anti-productive. Productivity is about doing less, but only doing what matters. So you got to get really good at deciphering what matters and what doesn't. And the way I like to do it is I just ask myself one question, qualifying question. Hey, out of all the things I got to do, what will get me the closest to my goal in the fastest time possible? And let me just do that and that, nothing else, right? If you're already doing sales, what part of your sales process are you the weakest in? That if you did fix, you would make more sales, more than anything else. And then you just prioritize that as the only thing you think about. And you need to not think about anything else, or else you'll never get any of it done. So busyness is not productivity. I'm trying to tell you this so overwhelm doesn't happen. You think getting busier means you're doing more, but you're not, you're doing less. I could start changing the color of my website. I'm just giving examples. start to get better lighting equipment, fill in my calendar on how to, plan out all my different videos. Like I'm picking a bunch of shit up, but none of those things are making me money, but it might improve the quality of my stuff online, my marketing. Okay. The only thing that'll make me more money right now is if I get more calls on the calendar so that we can close more sales. So what is the thing I can do that will give me the most amount of calls in the least amount of time right now? And I go, ooh, maybe I should make a new ad. Oh, maybe I should post something. Oh, maybe I should create a structure for, marketing on my emails. So I only do things that actually move me closer to the goal. And then I categorize all the shit that doesn't move me, but it's like something that has to be done as a task. And then I keep the projects as a deep work. Deep work is something that I spend a couple hours on minimum. So if you can plug in just one deep work session a day for one project that you need to finish, not a whole thing. Within the thing, what's the one thing you need time to actually do well? Not only will you get it done, but you'll get it done well because you weren't overwhelmed with all the other things. So I'm giving you a belief shift so that you stop thinking this way. So you stop doing that behavior. So you stop having this problem, because me telling you a quick fix right now won't solve the source. The source is you believe doing more is what you need to do, but it's not. It's about doing less. That's the one belief you need to change. You got to do less, but only do what matters. So overwhelm is a byproduct of you either picking on too many things that matter, and that just means you're not doing anything at all, or you just don't know how to prioritize what matters. And that's not a procrastination problem. So you're not clear with what you need to be doing. So you stack a bunch of random shit and you go, well, look how productive I am. I have a whole 17 things done today. But dude, I felt more productive doing one thing an entire day one. So I'll put it to you this way. If I get one big thing done a day over 5 days, I'll have 5 things done by the end of the week, right? Yep. But if someone else tries to do 10 things a day over 5 days, they'll have 50 things done in a week, right? Wrong. Barely have a few things done. Why? Because 50 things doesn't encourage a clear mind. So what happens is the illusion is some people wanted, like they put 10% effort, 10%, 10% energy into a bunch of mini things. And they think that's productivity. So but they overwhelm themselves. So over 5 days, you actually get usually none of it done, first of all, or you get a few things done because you got yourself to do it, or you do nothing. Like most people do nothing and will get none of it done, but they'll start 50 things. But the person who does one thing a day, starts and finishes it, will have 5 full big things done in a week. So it looks like in the process of the 5 days, one person's doing a lot more, so they're getting more done. The other one's doing less because they're just sitting down, like thinking about something and like building one thing. So it looks like that person's slower and doing less. But at the end of the week, they have 5 major blocks built.
I'm talking about.
And the other one has none. So that's what you got to realize. The difference of that alone would change the way you approach your work and what you got to do.
Awesome. We got time for 1 or 2 more. Lena, what you got?
Can you elaborate a little bit more about the structure with the discipline?
What specifically do you want me to elaborate on? Like,
what's the structure? What are you talking about when you mean structure? Structure of the day, your schedule, structure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. When you wake up tomorrow, do you know exactly what you're supposed to do?
Sure.
When you wake up in the morning, do you know exactly what your day is supposed to look like?
Yep.
From morning to afternoon to evening.
Yep.
And you know exactly what has to happen and what you have no time to happen during those times.
Yep.
Okay, now sticking to that structure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You got to make sure it's not just in your head. Like write it down. Because in your head is not structure. In your head is you're going with the flow. And you generally know. No. I mean, like at this time I wake up. At this time I'm doing this. You create a structure.
So following your schedule is a structure.
Yes, having a clear cut. Now, a daily structure is different than a daily schedule. Schedules are things you need to do. Those are variables. That changes.
Okay, yeah.
Structure means, for example, I'll tell you my structure. My mornings up until 10 a.m., I don't take a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do night. So when I'm disciplined is I say no to someone when they say they want to meet me at 8 a.m. because that's my purpose. That's my self-time.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
If I say I finish work at 8 because I need to spend time with my family, maybe that's where I'm at. I mean, you guys might not be there. I used to be like,
sure.
2 a.m. Yeah. Saying no to things or ending right there at 8 p.m., no matter how much you haven't done yet, that's discipline.
Right. So structure and the discipline. So sticking to the things you said, it's the discipline or it's actually following your structure. That's what I'm confusing.
Right. You don't need discipline to have structure. You need structure to have discipline.
Gotcha. Otherwise, you have nothing to discipline if you don't have structure.
Yeah. Now, when you get faced with temptations, like you're in the middle of your structure and you're like, I really don't want to do this. I want to do something else. That's called self-control. Now you got to sit there and you have to have the willpower to fight the urge. And here's the thing: there's no hack to how you do this. It's not like a sequence of words you say. Like it's not
Right.
like you just got to fucking pull it together. You might fail multiple times.
Yeah,
And one
sure,
time
sure.
you get it, you're like, I said no. Like 2 days ago, I decided to fast the whole day. I just wanted to fast, give my digestive system a day of break.
Sure.
And I got hungry 5 times throughout the day. And I just, I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to have a coffee instead. So I, blunt my hunger. And I did it in the whole day. And I just kept fighting it back to back. Every time I fought one urge, the next urge got easier and it got easier. And
Right. And you get stronger and stronger.
Yeah. So momentum gets built in your discipline, in your self.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as what I was saying earlier is if you don't have a structure, you can't think about discipline.
Because you have nothing to discipline.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Some people would sit in my seminars with President of Think and Grow Rich and go, I want my number one goal in life is to have discipline. I'm like, no, that's not a goal. Tell me this. What do you want discipline for? Be like, well, to get things done. I'm like, well, what things done? Oh,
Right.
I work. And I'm like, bro, your problem is you don't even know what you want. You can't want discipline. Discipline is a requirement for something you want.
Got it.
Okay. So don't set, here's a little tidbit for you. Don't set goals to get emotions. My goal is to be happy. That's not a goal.
Right.
A byproduct of you achieving a goal. My goal is to be disciplined. That's a state of mind.
Right.
My goal is to be positive. No, it's not a goal. A goal is an achievable outcome, something you could get.
Right.
And then the things that are required to get there are the things you're saying you want. But because people think if they set a goal to get that, then they'll get everything else. But the answer is they don't even know what they want. So what do they need discipline for?
Right. You need to have right. I got it.
Good question.
Guys, what is up? It's your boy Mike Barron. Thank you for checking out the channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you don't, I'm gonna come through this computer screen and close you up my damn self. Let's go. I'll see you at the top.